positive way and develop, I want to say, authentically.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what you say makes sense, right? Because part of this, is it the Gallup research
That's right.
that the article is based on confirmed that leadership as we know it is failing. And one of the reasons speaks to what you are talking about, the sort of lack of preparation and lack of training for the current leadership tier, which I would render to guess is filled with, younger millennials.
Absolutely. And I think what was interesting, seeing that you mentioned the report, is when you look at their key suggestions, there was 3 points. And 2 of them linked to the training of managers. But the third one, quite interesting, is specifically looking at let's support our leaders to adopt a coaching management style. Now, what that means is in the past, a lot of the managers were looking at command and control. I'll tell you what to do, you do it my way, versus the coaching management style is very focused on the growth and the development of their team leaders. So instead of, if you're the manager, instead of being the expert and telling your people what to do, you switch it and you ask meaningful questions so that that individual can find the answers themselves. Now, that's a management style that a lot of the people that's currently in a management role might not have been exposed to before, because when they grew up, it was command and control, and I'll tell you what to do. But if we then actually go and support them how to adopt that coaching management style, that's when the magic in the workplace starts to happen.
Absolutely. 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line. We'd love to hear from you as we have this conversation with Anya. And 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. We're exploring the environment in which young workers operate in and what leads them to no longer having an interest in climbing the corporate ladder. And we're just entertaining ideas around perhaps there's different requirements, different methodologies that need to be used and considerations that need to be taken into account that speak to what makes for a young person's perception of a healthy work environment or a healthy space for them to have career growth and career trajectory, and what is also stopping them from desiring that next level and that next tier. I would love to know from you. I asked, from your perspective, where you are, where you sit in your sector, your industry, if career growth is something that's still in your plans. Are you still aiming to grow to the next tier, to get into management, get into the executive level, ultimately maybe even make it to the C-suites? Or do things like that for you just don't matter? You are quite content to still stay at the level at which you are at, functioning at the pace that you've become accustomed to. And maybe it resonates with you why young workers are saying, we're not interested in climbing that corporate ladder. So, we'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to send through your voice notes on 061-410-4107, or you can give us a shout on 086-000-2032. That's the number that you can call us on. We're going to just take a quick pause and then get into the headline news. It's fast approaching 1:30. Just a few seconds to go before 1:30. We're going to get into the headline news with Ondela, and then we'll come back on the other side and hear your views about where you're at with your career. Are you still wanting to grow in your space that you are at? Still looking at the next tier of what success looks like for you in your career growth? Or you're just content? And there's no judgment here, because if you are content, you are content. We are all satisfied in different ways. So if you are happy to be where you're at the level that you're at for another year or two, or maybe indefinitely, hey, that's cool. And we'd also be interested to know what brings you that sense of contentment. That's coming up after the news headlines.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am on Dilambana, and a very good day. The Gauteng provincial government has revealed that it underspent by 1.8 billion rand at the end of the 2024-25 financial year. International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Labula says the Afrikaner group that took a decision to leave to the US do not qualify for a refugee status. The Trump administration made a decision to grant white Afrikaners who want to leave South Africa refugee status. And the United States and China have sought to end their trade war by agreeing to slash the tariffs they imposed on each other's goods. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, our WhatsApps are open for you. 061 410 4107 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. Should we kick off with WhatsApp? Let's kick off with WhatsApp.
Hey there, Johnny Mahala from Kobaga again. Just been listening to this management consultant personnel lady. I would say I'm 66, my son is 39. I would say that the younger generation, especially post-COVID and the digitally savvy generation, know and understand that the corporate world is essentially a place of subservience, humiliation. In order to climb the corporate ladder, you have to bend the knee. And I worked in marketing and advertising for like 40 years. I didn't fit the mold, so I imagined myself as a freelancer whose defining characteristic was being difficult and challenging the status quo. And I think younger people, they really get this. Is that BMW, is the home, is the expensive education really worth all the humiliation that you have to go through? Big question.
Sure.
So, managers, it has to be completely rethought. Who needs people? This is one of the big questions.
Hi, SFM listeners. The real problem here about this climbing ladder thing in the corporate world. I think people have started to realize, especially these kids, I think they've started to see what is really there. I mean, honestly, it's not even a ladder to climb on. It's a wheel. So why would anyone to be interested in climbing a ladder that is not really there? It doesn't make sense, eh?
Interesting perspectives there. I didn't catch the last voice note, but I also kind of like those analogies of it's not even a ladder. I took the liberal sort of creativity to put hamster wheels. Like it's not even a ladder. It's a hamster wheel. And Johnny having some very strong perceptions there as well. And you're just talking about climbing that ladder requires one to be subservient and almost bending the knee. And if you rock the boat in some way, your defining characteristic becomes known as you being difficult.
And I think Johnny had such a valid point. And I think, unfortunately, not everyone have the luxury to say, okay, I'm now saying goodbye to the role in corporate or the business industry where you're working, and I'm opening my own thing. But I think what he mentioned about that critical thinking, we all know that's a skill that's required to be successful in the world of work. So I absolutely agree with him, and I think that is why we need to rethink not only the role of a manager, but have a look at how do we, as business leaders, offer flexible career pathways. Because I think it starts with that if you're a specialist or if you do have that critical thinking, I'm now just mentioning what Johnny mentioned, but that there's different options for people, that it's not only up, that there's alternatives that they can explore. Because I think that is the dilemma that we're sitting with, is that as a leader, your responsibility is to create an environment where people can thrive. I know that the motivation needs to come within. We can't motivate our teams, but we have a responsibility to create that environment where they feel that they can make a meaningful contribution.
Yeah. Malcolm in Vanderbilt, how are you? Hey, Malcolm.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, and yourself, ma'am?
I'm great. Go ahead.
I think we should take the approach from an economical perspective with psychological perspective as well. I mean, these children growing up saw their parents going to work each and every day, sawing them slave away in the corporate ladder, and now they don't want it for themselves. I think what the whole COVID situation perspective is that they have found creative ways to substitute an income. They don't have to always climb a corporate ladder, but there's so many different variety of ways to actually generate an income. I mean, online and cryptocurrency, even in shares. So you don't have to climb a corporate ladder to be successful financial-wise. There's so many other ways that you can substitute that income for yourself to say, listen, I don't have to work a 9 to 5 and slave off at evenings just to climb this corporate ladder. I can work savvy with my money. I can work smart with my money, and I can generate an extra income without having all the hassle of being management.
Makes perfect sense, Malcolm. Thank you so much for your contributions. Our lines are still open for you on 061-410-4107. That's our WhatsApp line. If you want to send through a WhatsApp voice note to 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. Malcolm touching on the psychology of it as well there, Anya. And I mean, that's the truth, right? We also find ourselves in an environment now where young folks have become quite entrepreneurial in ways that we didn't know existed 5 years ago. And that also speaks to their definition of what success is, both financially and otherwise, outside of the usual contemporary structures of the corporate world.
Yeah, and Bridget, you spot on. I love what Malcolm mentioned, because I think the younger generations, as you said, they're setting different boundaries, they're setting different ways of making financial means, and I think we have seen a lot of people having a side hustle, and earning money that way, and not the traditional way that we think of, starting at a place and you're there 30 years later and you go on retirement, and it's a different way of choosing how to live life. And I think it comes back to that balance of, am I working to live or am I living to work?
Sure. I think some European forerunners have been on that thought. I'm thinking pre-COVID, people in the Netherlands, organizations were already piloting that sort of balance of life. One would be interested actually in knowing how they came out of COVID and what changed in their dynamics. So for young people that are still within the structures of traditional work, how do we then sort of, I don't know if the word is engage them, in a way that speaks to their concerns, and in a way that maybe helps them and helps us get to a place where we can sort of spark that interest and that motivation for them, exploring what it might look like to be in the C-suite.
Yeah, and I think, Bridget, what you mentioned here is very important. It's critical because it's almost like it's a co-creation. It's not the current leadership or perhaps even HR people teams that's looking at building a new role. I think it's co-creating with the younger people to ask, what does this look like? What we do know is autonomy, flexibility, that sense of purpose, that continuous growth. Those are aspects. It's important for everyone, but I think especially for the younger generations. And that's why we need to take hands and say, okay, so if we want to create more flexible career paths, what does that look like? How can we then show you a path where there's more autonomy or where there's more flexibility? I also think it's finding that balance of investing in their skills. I mean, as I've mentioned, so many new managers are not trained. They're not supported. They're just, congratulations, here's your role, and without any sufficient training or guidance or even support for them. And then to think of, yes, it's good to have those titles, but how do we continuously support them? And have a look at, I think it's that continuous development, not only doing it when they're appointed, but throughout their careers.
Absolutely.
So I think that's something that comes to mind.
Absolutely. Anya van Beek, thank you so much for the time and the conversation. Anya is a talent and culture strategist and, of course, an HR expert and executive coach. It's just gone 22 at 2 o'clock. We're going to hit a quick pause here and then we come back on the other side.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba, as they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The city of Durban is once again ready to roll out the red carpet for thousands of delegates, and influential buyers were gathering from across the globe from the 12th until the 15th of May to attend Africa's Travel Indaba. This premier travel exhibition stands as the continent's flagship event, showcasing the very best that Africa has to offer in leisure travel. And you can visit Durban to explore and experience the city's unique offerings firsthand, from breathtaking hikes, thrilling indoor and outdoor adventures, vibrant culture, stunning natural landscapes, and world-class attractions. Join Durban Tourism at stand DEC 1G09 for your next holiday destination. For more details, you can visit www.visitdurban.travel. That's www.visitdurban.travel, or follow at DBN Tourism, that's DBN Tourism, on social media platforms. Hashtag Discover Durban, hashtag Visit Durban, hashtag Endless Fun Season, hashtag Africa Travel Indaba, hashtag ATI 2025, hashtag Durban has more.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Well, I hope you managed to grab one of those hashtags, and this show will see you in Durban for the Travel Indaba. All right now we are catching up with Blessing Litswara, who is a marketplace lead and lead trainer at Digify Africa. And they're opening up applications for Digify Pro Online 2025. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Bridget, and good afternoon to all your listeners. I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much. So applications have been open for Digify Pro Online 2025 from the 5th of May already, and they're going to run until the 20th of June. Give us some context about the Pro Online.
All right, so Pro Online is a program which is powered by Digify Africa. It is a free, self-paced digital marketing training program specifically for young South Africans who are aged between the ages of 18 and 35. It's of no cost. It's fully online. It doesn't require any data-heavy platforms or any travel needed there. All you need is a smartphone, and we basically take you through the essentials of digital marketing to help you kickstart your career in digital marketing, be it as a freelancer or maybe a job placement or maybe building your portfolio. So it's an online free digital marketing training program for young South Africans.
Initially, Blessing, why was this program created? Is it a sense of filling a gap now for young South Africans and seeing perhaps where the market is going and enabling them to exploit it?
Yeah, I think if you look continentally, Africa does have the youngest population, and there's a lot of human ingenuity there in terms of the skills that are available, and access to the internet is actually expanding. So there has been an opportunity for us to equip our young people. We have had cohorts in Kenya and Nigeria as well with the very same program. This one is specifically for South Africans, but we found the need to really equip our young people who just have a smartphone and don't have much to be able to access this digital industry, and also the gap that's there also is for us to make sure that we alleviate unemployment and we give them an opportunity to create employment for themselves in some instances. I mean, I myself I'm a case of someone who started their own business after doing this program. So we realize there's a need to really upskill and also give our young people the digital skills they need, because Africa is a really, really hot continent when it comes to young people and tech and digital at this stage. So that's where the opportunity and the gap actually is.
Let's speak a little bit about, the program and what is being curated for those who participate. And also what sets it apart from other online programs. Let me tack another third question onto that, because now you've just told us that you came through the program yourself. Retrospectively for you, what did you get out of the program?
So the program is made up of a number of modules, which include specific skills like social media marketing, search engine optimization, email marketing, content creation. And content creation is a big topic in these days. So there are a number of programs. We've now included AI, how to use AI when you're marketing, how to use AI for your business. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway from the program was that I was able to get a really holistic understanding of the digital marketing industry and also be able to apply my skills. So what makes it different from other programs is that you have a live experience. For example, we would have a company come in. In my time, we worked on a campaign with Nando's where they gave us a brief and we had to complete the brief and we had to really impress the client with our work. So you get a real life experience of doing real agency work, real business work within the program, and by the time you complete, you have a better understanding of what to expect when you step out into the real world. So it is three-tiered. There's a foundation level, which is very entry level, and then there's an intermediate, and then there's an advanced. The advanced level is specifically for specialization. We realize that it's very important for, as much as you might have a holistic understanding, you really need to specialize in a specific skill in order for you to get the most out of the industry. So that's how we've tiered it up in three different levels, where you get to specialize either in data analytics, in paid advertising, in content marketing, or in cybersecurity. So that's how we've basically designed the whole program. And the current applications that are open are for the foundation level, which is really just a basic understanding of what digital marketing is and all the elements that are involved.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like quite the comprehensive program. By way of that application for the first phase of the program, how do folks apply? And how long is the first phase? I presume, obviously, because it's 3 tiers, then it broken down into the 3-tier curricula. But just in thinking of timeframes for folks that are applying for this first phase, the foundation phase, how long does that take?
Well, so when you do apply on our social media platforms, Digify Africa, there are constant posts on a daily basis, right? So on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, we are on all social media platforms. You'll see links that will guide you to a form that you'll just have to fill in with your details, just to verify that you are South African, that you are between the ages that you say you are in, and then you'll then have to download the app. either onto your phone or onto your desktop, right? But it works perfectly with a phone, right? And the time it will take you to complete the program, it is self-paced. That's how we've designed it. However, we have estimated that it will take you about 4 weeks for this intermediate level. If you are doing a little bit of work every day, let's say maybe you're busy with other things, if you're just doing a little bit of work on the app every day, just about 4 weeks is enough for you to finish. But it is really self-paced. But we would like people to be finished with the program by the time we open for the intermediate level, which is on the 20th, as you said, of June.
Yeah.
So we'd like people to have finished the foundation level so that they can be eligible for the intermediate level. Right?
Makes perfect sense.
Yes, so that they'll be well prepared to step into the intermediate level. So that's basically the time frame of the program. It doesn't really take long for you to complete. I think, did I miss one last question?
No, that was it.
All
that
right.
was it.
All
Perfect and perfectly timed as well. Blessing Litware, thank you so much for the time. And Blessing is the marketplace lead and the lead trainer at Digify Africa. And you can visit digifyafrica.com, or you can follow them on their social media platforms. At Digify Africa is their handle across all the platforms for you to get more information on the programs that they offer. The applications are now open for the Digify Pro Online 2025 program. You don't want to miss that as they kick off the foundation phase and then lead up to the intermediate and then ultimately to the advanced phase. Just gone 10 to 2 o'clock. A quick pause and then we'll come back and we catch up with the folks at Allen Gray.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel, Rosabelle, and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
Hey Zama, have you submitted our employer reconciliation declaration?
Oh no, not yet. I thought I'd leave it for next week.
If we comply, it makes it easier for our employees to get accurate tax assessments. It will be even faster now that SARS has the new Easy File Employer version 8. Employers, make tax matters your priority number 1. Submit your annual employer reconciliation declaration by 31 May 2025. Your tax matters. So does your time. SARS, at your service.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Here's another quick opportunity for you. We're catching up with the Allen Gray makers, and they've launched the Artisans of Mzansi 2025. And we're catching up with Program Director for the Allen Gray makers, Seth Muli. How are you doing this afternoon, Seth?
I'm good, thanks, Bridget. Thanks for having me.
Only but a pleasure. All right, so entries are opened for Artisans of Mzansi 2025, but perhaps just some quick context around this national campaign.
Sure. Thank you to your listeners and thanks for having me. Really, the focus of Artisans of Mzansi is, one, to empower artisans. We really want to celebrate artisan entrepreneurs in our country by offering them cash prizes, business advisory services to help them scale their business and boost local economies. The second thing is really around changing perceptions. The trade careers are often underlooked and devalued, and the idea is to challenge the stigma surrounding TVET colleges and the trades by highlighting successful artisans as role models. Really to demonstrate that these careers are viable, respectable, and lucrative. And the third thing is really around the skills shortage that we have in South Africa. We're only producing half of the annual artisanal talent target, according to the National Development Plan. But the idea is to showcase these artisan entrepreneurs so more young people can consider skilled trades as a viable career option.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something that's very important, right? The second sort of motivation behind this program, and that's been the change of perception around artisan careers and tradesmen in the country. And considering the fact that it gives such great opportunity for an entrepreneur to be able to take charge of your own success and your own life.
Absolutely. The trades kind of lend themselves towards becoming either self-employed or becoming an entrepreneur and employing others. But traditionally, they've been overlooked. But I can tell you now, an entry-level plumbing apprenticeship or an entry-level plumber makes a lot more than most people think. But imagine more for an artisan who's running a plumbing business, how much they generate in revenue. But more than anything else, the social impact they're making by creating jobs in their local communities.
Yeah. And I was about to say the opportunity there, because I think, I'm quite fond of plumbers. the opportunity there also to sort of diversify your business and get in on the different other segments of trades that one would not think of unless perhaps you are conscientized around trade careers.
Absolutely. I think a study came out that if 60% of high school leavers in South Africa went and studied at a TVET college or a private institution, that we would meet that 30,000 national agenda of, equipping 30,000 artisans a year. But currently we're not doing that. So the idea through this narrative campaign is to change the perception so that more young people, but also parents, aunties, uncles, friends who have young people who are considering career choices in grade 9 and grade 10, who are at TVET colleges, can see artisan careers as viable, respectable, and lucrative.
In fact, from what I read, currently South Africa is producing only 15,000 artisan graduates per year versus the 30,000, which is the goal. This program is not something alien to Allan Gray makers. Talk to us quickly about perhaps some of the success that you've seen coming out of just this consistent drive to get artisan careers out there.
Sure. So as Allan Gray makers, our purpose is really to ignite dignity and meaning in life through accelerating artisanal entrepreneurship. And through this campaign, we've been able to find some remarkable artisanal entrepreneurial talent. One young man who applied in 2023 when we ran this competition and campaign, he studied at a TVET college. He worked at Eskom. He studied to become an electrician. And while he was there, he found a problem. And he decided that he wanted to create a prototype to solve energy efficiency. He applied to this competition, and all he needed was 100,000 rand to patent his idea. He won. We gave him support. We connected him with the Technology Innovation Agency, TIA. And I can tell you right now, his product is now available for sale at Macro.
Oh, wow.
And these are just some stories of incredible artisanal talent that are in our country building incredible solutions. He won the innovation category. And the idea is really to find these incredible entrepreneurs, artisans that are running great trade businesses, support them, spotlight them, so that, one, they can serve as relatable role models, but more than anything else, we can support them to grow their businesses.
Yeah.
You would understand the youth unemployment rate in our countries is quite high, and we're of the view that the only way to attack, maybe not the only way, the way that we think is effective to attack poverty, inequality, and unemployment is through entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. So 30th of June, Seth, is the applications, is that the closing date?
That's correct.
That's the closing date, 30th of June. Just in our last minute, what are the requirements?
Sure. The competition is open to qualified artisans under 50 who own at least 50% of a formal trade business. And we have special recognition for innovation, regardless of revenue. really ensuring a broad and diverse range of participants.
Wonderful stuff. And you can go to alangraymakers.co.za. That's alangraymakers.co.za /Artisans of Mzansi. And you've got until the 30th of June. The shortlisted candidates are going to undergo some interviews as well as pitching their presentations before winners are announced. It is a few to go, and then it's 2 o'clock on the dot. Ondela's coming through.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2. Gauteng Finance MEC addresses media on the province's spending, and US and China agree to end their trade war. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. The Gauteng provincial government has revealed that it underspent by 1.8 billion rand at the end of 2024-25 financial year. The provincial government says 58% of the underspending came from the health and education provincial departments, while 42% was attributed to other various departments. Finance MEC Lebogang Maile explained that one of the 0.8 billion rand underspent, a total of over 380 million rand, was from conditional grants from the national government, while 1.4 billion rand came from the provincial equitable share funds. Milo was addressing a media briefing in Johannesburg.
Of the 381.510 million in conditional grant underspending, a total of 295.665 million was the subject of an application to the National Treasury, while the relevant departments could not motivate and provide evidence for the balance of 85.845 million, which will revert to National Revenue Fund. The 1.418 billion in the provincial equitable share funding will also be subject to an internal Gauteng provincial government process led by Gauteng Provincial Treasury and subject to intense scrutiny.
International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamula says the Afrikaner group that took a decision to leave to the US do not qualify for a refugee status. The Trump administration made a decision to grant white Afrikaners who want to leave South Africa refugee status. Addressing the media in Pretoria on the country's preparedness on the main G20 summit in November, Lamula says all citizens in the country are treated equally.
From the perspective of the South African government, in terms of the executive orders that have defined the refugees, the South Africans as refugees, we have stated in the statement we issued on Friday that in line with the international definition, they do not qualify for that status. And there is no persecution of white African South Africans in South Africa. This has been proven by a number of statistics in our country, including the police reports.
Nurses commemorating International Nurses Day in Mpumalanga have urged government to tighten security measures at health centres to ensure the safety of workers and patients. The Provincial International Nurses Day is being commemorated in Mkutlu near Hazy View. Nursing Union Denosa says the safety of health workers and patients is paramount. Denosa's second Deputy President, Lena Gianni, says they want improved safety measures in all public health facilities across the province.
The things that we want to see happening to our nurses, it is that the employer must provide the safe environment, working environment for our workers. What we want, the security is to be strengthened in a way that we do not talk about the human resources only, but even the technical things that they may be used to ensure that our safety and security in our institution becomes better and becomes improved. Because the attacks on our nurses is not something that we still want to see.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says the African continent must strive for peace, especially where there are conflicts. He says the latest ceasefire agreement in the Democratic Republic of Congo is a right step towards lasting peace on the continent. Speaking at the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, Ramaphosa says the withdrawal of some DRC troops was necessary for laying the foundation of peace talks between the warring factions in the eastern DRC.
The processes that have been happening on the continent, either the Nairobi process, the Luanda process, AU process, have been very, very essential in building a foundation of peacemaking and also confidence building, up to and including agreements that have been reached for a ceasefire between the belligerents, up to and including the withdrawal of, say, the SADC forces.
The United States and China have sought to end their trade war by agreeing to slash the tariffs they impose on each other's goods. Both sides have agreed to cut import duties by 115 percentage points. The BBC's Morgan Fox has the details.
The world's two biggest economies, the US and China, have been on a collision course, ramping up reciprocal tariffs to over 100%, unsustainable levels that threaten the global economy. The tariffs are back down to 10%, but the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also made it clear that Washington would continue with what he called a strategic rebalancing of global trade.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng provincial government has revealed that it underspent by 1.8 billion rand at the end of the 2024-25 financial year. I am on Dilambana for SFM News Headlines at 2:30.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Marawai, why did you think a plastic bag and tape was a solid window replacement after that smash and grab? And why does it sound like a kite every time you hit Puma 60Ks? Marawai, why aren't you insured with Santam, the insurer that covers theft or attempted hijacking? Get your car covered online in just 2 minutes or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. T's and C's apply. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Cool catch! Elmo thinks Elmo's friends are great!
Thanks, Elmo! I like how you cheer and encourage your friends, son.
Elmo likes it too.
Elmo, you are special. Who you are matters
Because we're all special.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame, weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Baby, won't you stay with me for the rest of my life? I promise to love you right, give you all the love that you deserve. Baby, won't you stay with me for the rest of my life? I promise to love you right, give you all the love that you deserve. Sitting here alone, thinking to myself, love's been really kind to me. It didn't take much time for me to realize I'm such a lucky girl to be the one by your side. My heart beats only for you, only for you. Baby, won't you stay with me for the rest of my life? I promise to love you right, give you all the love that you deserve. Baby, won't you stay promise to love you right. Give you all the love that you deserve. My love is true, only for you. Our love is beautiful, so incredible. My love is true, only for you. Our love is beautiful, so incredible. Oh, won't you stay, 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 stay with me? Baby, won't you stay with me for the rest of my life? I promise to love you right, give you all the love that you deserve. Baby, won't you stay, stay with me for the rest of my life? I promise to love you right, give you all the love that you deserve. Won't you stay, 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 stay with me?
Brenda Mtambo coming through. Stay With Me is the name of the song. A wonderful musician, wonderful singer-songwriter, even more brilliant to catch in person. And she is a mental health advocate because she herself has had to grapple with the issues around anxiety. But, you know, we speak about it with her from time to time. She now expresses it quite openly in the hopes that it helps someone else. We're going to get into a conversation now around an opinion piece that was titled Beyond Chalk and Talk, the urgent need to save South Africa's education system. We're catching up with Nadia Lubowski, who is the managing trustee of the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust. The teaching profession, it's always been one of the many pillars within a thriving society. However, today in South Africa, it is a profession in peril. Our educators, those entrusted with shaping future generations, are burning out. They're under-resourced and increasingly walking away from the profession altogether, resulting in what is effectively a brain drain locally. So we thought we'd explore some of these themes and challenges with Nadia Lubowski. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for the time. We appreciate it. I guess perhaps just for us to also get some understanding and background around the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust and the kind of work that you guys do and how that intersects, obviously, in the educational sector.
Yes. So the background is that my father was Anton Lubowski, and he was assassinated in 1989 in front of our home. And his killing and his life never really got justice nor an acknowledgement that he deserved based on everything that he had actually contributed to both the independence of Namibia and South Africa. But so we then as a family decided to start the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust to honor him as a, hero of fighting for freedom and for justice for this country, and just to honor his life and all the things that he stood for. So we started the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust, and the reason, I remember watching a video of him because there was students that had come from the States, and they were asking him all sorts of questions about Africa and South Africa and Namibia, and they asked, what would make the biggest difference, and he kept saying, education, 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 because we need to educate our youth and our people so that this doesn't ever happen to them again. And I suppose that stuck with me, and I studied to become a teacher, and then through in-service training realized the disparity that existed between our more affluent areas and our very much less affluent areas. And I became a principal in Philippi and saw what it's like in those areas and what children are facing when it comes to going to school. So we then started the trust, and we've been doing the work since.
touched on...
Hello?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I touched on the fact that a lot of our educators, as part of the piece, a lot of the educators who should be shaping future generations here are finding themselves in really between a rock and a hard place for a whole host of reasons, and ultimately choosing to opt out of the profession or perhaps take their skills elsewhere. Let's talk about some of the challenges that educators are facing on a day-to-day basis within the context of South Africa.
Yeah, so, classrooms, one can say, are really on the brink of collapse in many ways, because we have our public schools that are facing these incredibly staggering learner-teacher ratios of children in the classroom over 50, but if not 50, then at least sort of close to 40, which are incredibly overcrowded. They as an environment aren't actually even conducive for learning, because a teacher now already has to manage this amount of children, and then the classroom itself doesn't actually even lend itself to learning. And in a pedagogical relationship, the classroom can really be another teacher, so to speak, if it's an engaging environment where children have the possibility to learn and explore. Then that, but these teachers are dealing with classrooms that are even under-resourced on that level. Chaos management, so to speak, is ultimately the main job of that person, and that requires a huge amount of resilience and an inordinate skill that I don't think teachers have really been equipped with either. And then, depending on how far we go, you've even got infrastructural problems where the school isn't even safe from an infrastructural point of view, with broken windows and desks and everything that isn't actually even functioning, and then no learning material, so deeply under-resourced. So we've got all these different layers, and then there's also the teacher that isn't necessarily equipped or skilled to deal with those kinds of things, and then also overloaded with a huge amount of admin. And then it's the admin, but then there's actually also the learning curriculum that a teacher needs to get through, but is managing so much of the discipline that that the teacher's unable to actually get through the learning curriculum. But then to add insult to injury, which happened quite recently, that school that was being extorted with that protection fee that people are asking in those areas, and now a teacher's even fearing for their life, and why would I want to go to school for that when everything else is dysfunctional and now my life is at stake?
Yeah, and I think I think that sort of those multi layers that you speak of, Nadia. On the one hand, the lack of resource, the dilapidated, failing infrastructure, the financial challenges and lack of support that a lot of our community schools and specific to rural and disenfranchised areas. And then over and above that, there's also the social element, right? The societal element of it all. The fact that teachers, we often speak to a number of stakeholders in education on the show, teachers more so than not now are also increasingly becoming caregivers to their students, which is something that shouldn't necessarily be within the purview of what they do in the classroom. But now they are caregivers, they are nurturers, social workers to their students over and above the service that they should be providing.
Absolutely. It is one of the aspects that we as the Trust are looking, are actually actively working on is art therapy, from a trauma-informed lens, is because the level of trauma that children are dealing with on a daily basis is inordinate. I mean, it's huge for these little people, little children dealing with these traumas, and then you've got, the child-headed household, and it's just layer upon layer of what children are facing. And then, the areas are not safe, and then as a school, it's generally not safe, and the teachers are carrying a lot of those burdens, as you say. They become these different roles that ultimately they're not really equipped to be, but then on top of it, they're ultimately actually also dealing with their own traumas. It's like it's this perpetuating cycle of trauma and not being equipped on how to process or deal with that trauma. And the reason, why I suppose I became so interested in that and started to see it to the degree that I did is because I was 9 years old when my father was assassinated. And the world doesn't stop for you to process and to deal with something like that. And I'm a person that's at least got access to different forms of therapies and have done multiple things in my whole life. But, children in those communities are facing that on a regular basis and don't have the access to these different therapies and to the ways in which I actually learn to deal with this trauma.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it becomes this multi-layered problem that we're sitting with.
Yeah.
Human rights issue, in my opinion.
Let's take a quick pause here, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation at the side, looking at the urgent need to save South Africa's education system. And of course, as per usual, our lines are open for you as well. You can send us a WhatsApp on 061-410-4107 if you have some thoughts.
Slipper Day is on the 30th of May, and I'm helping to make big dreams come true. When you support Slipper Day, you're helping Reach for a Dream bring smiles and joy to children facing tough illnesses. Do you want to help too? You can visit reachforadream.org.za to find out more about Slipper Day. Let's do it for the dreamers! This is an SABC-supported initiative.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
He's done it again! Introduction! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Save and win a car with Spar for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 200-gram Dow Egberts instant coffee for $139.99 plus 300 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 145-gram Doritos corn chips. Buy any two for 35 Rand plus 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation with Nadia Lubowski, who is the managing trustee of the Anton Lubowski Educational Trust. And the conversation is around the urgent need to save South Africa's education system. How do we look beyond the chalk? How do we look beyond the classroom and begin to talk about some of the issues that South Africa's education or educators rather are facing in and around the classroom? As we went into a break, we're just looking at some of those social dynamics that also add to teachers, to the burden that teachers carry every single day, having to act as caregivers, as social workers, and at times as well as security guards. We all see the videos coming out of social media of just how violent some of our school environments can be, and teachers often being, at the brunt of that violence. And it also reflects a lot, I guess, around just how much the education sector is missing that formal support system, Nadia, and what kind of conversation needs to be held there, right? Because we understand that what transpires inside school campuses, what transpires on school grounds, is just a reflection of what's going on beyond the school fence in the communities in which our kids live in the communities in which our teachers live in. So what kind of support, formal support, needs to be part of this conversation as to what that looks like for educators?
Yeah, absolutely. You really have put the hammer on the nail here in terms of the fact that not just the fence around the class, around the school, but actually children in general will ultimately really show up what society is currently holding, because children don't have those barriers to hide these things. So the communities are in desperate need of interventions, in the sense of actually having so many services and things that haven't been met since apartheid ended, in inverted commas. So, and children really are, at that place of, I suppose, being desperate, because very often, and the younger you go, the more this is the case. But even if you don't get these skills from a young age, you don't really have them later, is to articulate what it is that they're really struggling with. And seeing, seeing the things that children are seeing in the communities are completely traumatic and inappropriate in so many ways. And yet they are expected to process them, and then they're expected to go to school and deal with them. Expected to learn when the brain isn't even able to receive the information, because the trauma itself is just putting them into fight or flight mode, which isn't conducive for learning. So one of the things that that's why we started these art therapy workshops, is because you need to engage the safety system, and only when the safety system is engaged can you actually begin that process of learning. So on a societal level, there are so many things that we really, really have to face and look at. And that's a very complex process to have to be able to look at that. And yet our schooling systems are really only teaching us to look at things in a complicated way, which is completely different.
Yeah.
And the things that children need currently are so far beyond what they're getting. That's why it's a perpetuating cycle within our societies of things that are done that are seemingly okay, but they're not.
What do we do by way of maybe the reforms then that need to be in place to I guess better support and prepare teachers for everything else that comes with teaching in the classroom?
Yeah, so again, I mean, that's not a very simple answer, but, first and foremost, I suppose we need to all look at us, we all need to look at ourselves and go, look at the man in the mirror and kind of really, really look at, so what is it that I'm contributing to how these disparities have begun to grow to the level that they have, and then also what do I do to actually help someone in that kind of situation. So teachers need so much more support in all the realms in what they're dealing with. But so do the children and so do the families. So there's multiple small ways, there's multiple big ways that one can get involved. And in small ways it would be, we've got a whole donation drive of gently used storybooks, and to contribute to a nutrition drive that we're doing, because it's not a joke, but children and people are really hungry and don't have enough food. They're taking medication on empty stomachs. And so there's ways in which you can contribute in these small ways, and they're hugely beneficial and hugely impactful, because it starts a cycle of, that if you're fed nutritionally, your second brain, which is your gut, really does start engaging very differently. And access to learning materials is also hugely beneficial. And then there's bigger ways to contribute, which is the project that we're also involved in, which is trying to build an educare center that benefits the children hugely, but also really becomes a training space for teachers to come and look at what learning would look like, and for that to expand to these other little centers, for their infrastructures to be helped and to be improved, and then for it also to be a training space. And ultimately really, really engaging in teaching and learning in this trauma-informed way.
Yeah.
Because we do look at it from a healing lens, not from a lacking perspective, because children do carry huge resilience and a lot of resources within them, and so do communities. Communities have massive resources. There's no way that people would still be coming to work the way that they do and live their lives the way they do if they don't hold a deep level of resources and resilience within them anyway.
Absolutely.
It's in working with those systems that do exist that one can make those stronger within a community and within children and start really expanding that repertoire.
Yeah, we have to leave it there, unfortunately, for this afternoon, Nadia, but we appreciate your insights on this conversation, and that was Nadia Lebowski, who is the managing trustee there. It's just gone 2:30. Ondela standing by with the headline news, and then that should segue us into our kids programming for the afternoon. Kids Corner coming up on the other side.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, the Gauteng provincial government has revealed that it underspent by 1.8 billion rand at the end of 2024-25 financial year. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge has heard that it is possible to tamper with CCTV footage once it is downloaded off the system. And President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged the private sector to take part in the African Continental Free Trade Area. The trade agreement aims to accelerate trade across the continent and strengthen its position in the global market. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Good day, everyone. My name is Zamangoza Mayana, and today I will be talking about whether I prefer working in a group or working by myself. I prefer working in a group. The benefits of working in a group: it can be beneficial for sharing diverse perspectives and ideas, learning from others, and building teamwork and communication skills. But there are also some challenges of working in a group. Some challenges include coordinating schedules and work styles, managing conflicting opinions and ideas, and ensuring equal participation and group work. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys learned something new today. See you guys next time.
Hello guys, my name is Prophet Kindevi Ikena Eze and I'm 11 years old. I prefer working by myself because some group works, other people, they will make themselves be the leader of the group and it will cause, disunity. The thing I enjoy most about working with other kids in a group is, you can just teach them the stuff so that you can't dance on your own, because it's kind of weird for somebody to be dancing on his own. I think that can be challenging about group work is this unity, and they will use that opportunity to talk bad behind that person. I may know because this happened to me, so by telling them, guys, this is a group work, it's not a time to make fun of other people, because we don't use group work to talk, we use it to practice, and when it's now group work performance day, we do good. The time it's better to work alone is when it's a project, you make it by yourself. But the time you can work with others is performing. The way I can make sure everyone in the group gets a chance to share their ideas is by, having attention in the group and calling out people's suggestions. Yeah. Thank you. God bless.
Hi everyone, my name is Yolanda Mzobe. I am 11 years old. I prefer working alone, not in a group. Why? Because some people can cause conflicts. What I do enjoy the most working in other groups with other kids is that if there's a question I don't understand, I ask them and they'll explain to me and I'll have a better understanding. What's challenging about group work is that some people will have a disagreement about the answers. For example, 6 times 6, the answer is 36, but someone will say maybe the answer is 39. And at the end, they will be fighting. It's better to work alone when it's a homework, and it's better to work with others when it's something you don't understand. How can you make sure everyone in a group gets a chance to share their ideas by asking if is there anyone who have a better understanding who can explain, and when they explain, everyone will have a better understanding. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, beautiful people of Mzansi. My name is Masinga. I think I enjoy both working in a group and working by myself, but I definitely feel more comfortable working by myself. And I say this because usually in groups, the work always falls to me. Like, I'm the one who has to come up with the strategy. I'm the one who has to come up with the ideas. And yes, I'm not saying they don't work. They do work, but it makes me feel like I'm the mastermind of the plan. So they only follow what I say. And I think the best part of working in a group is that you can share like specific responsibilities, and it also it's just easier to work in a group because, for example, let's say there's 10 things that you have to do, and when you're in a group, those responsibilities can be shared. But when you're working alone, you have to do all those 10 things by yourself. And then I think the hardest part about working alone is not having creative ideas, not having other people's opinions on whatever you're doing. You know, sometimes it's nice for people to say, you know what, I don't really like that idea, let's work with something else. Because when you're alone, your biggest critic is yourself. I think what I would do to make sure that everyone has like their own responsibility is I'd obviously ask people what they think about the ideas, because I don't like it when people are just quiet and they don't contribute anything, because everyone has a voice and you have to use it. So everyone must share their ideas on what they think we're supposed to do, and then when we figure out what idea we're sticking with, then we share responsibilities. Everyone will say, no, I can do this, then the other one will say, I can do that. So yeah, I think it just goes with, you know, your capability of doing something.
Hello friends, and happy Monday. Today let's talk about something that happens often at school: working in groups or working alone. Have you thought about which one you enjoy more? Some kids love working with their friends because they can share ideas, solve problems together, and finish tasks as a team. Others enjoy doing things by themselves where they can go at their own pace and think quietly. Both ways are special, and both help us grow in different ways. When you work in a group, you learn how to listen to others, take turns, and support each other. You also learn how to handle challenges like when someone doesn't agree with your idea or when the group needs help staying focused. But that's all part of learning. Working in a group is a chance to build teamwork skills, friendships, and confidence. On the other hand, working alone can help you become more independent. It's great for when you really want to focus or when you're doing something that helps you think deeply, like reading, writing, or solving a puzzle. It also helps you learn how to manage your time and trust yourself to get things done. No matter which way you're working, one thing is always the same. You must work hard, stay focused, and never give up. Hard work shows your teachers, your friends, and most importantly yourself that you care about what you're doing. And remember, it's okay to ask for help. Whether you're in a group or on your own, it's also okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. So as you go into the rest of your week, I want you to remember this. Whether you're part of a team or doing something on your own, always give it your best. Be kind, stay curious, and enjoy learning. That's it from us today, friends. Until next time, keep shining, keep learning, and keep being the amazing you. Bye for now.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives. This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right. We're still live streaming, by the way. We're still live streaming. So you can go on our social media we live stream every day. But just to remind you that we live stream on our social media platforms at SAFM Radio is where you can find us across social media. I'm also there at Bridget Masinga on X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. So let's have this conversation around university curriculum transformation. Whose knowledge is prioritized in the I want to say in academia. Whose knowledge is prioritized in the academy, and how should this be reimagined? And perhaps something that you've given thought in your inner circles with your friends. You've had some discourse around it. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. You can send through a WhatsApp voice note, or you can give us a call on 086-000-2032. That's the conversation of the day. Whose knowledge is prioritized in the academy, and how should this be reimagined? And this question was actually recently posed in a publication, in a book titled Unlocking the Chains of Knowledge and Understanding the Challenges, Remaking Pedagogies and Curriculum Renewal. We've got Prof. Zani Bok joining us now as a professor of linguistics and previous deputy dean of learning in the Faculty of Arts and Humanities at the University of Cape Town. And we also have, is it the University of Eastern Cape? Western Cape, all right. Western Cape. And then we have Prof. Russell H. Kashula, who's a professor of African Language Studies and Research Chair in Forensic Linguistics and Multilingualism at the University of Western Cape as well. How are you doing to both of you? Welcome. Thank you so much for the time. Let's maybe get some context behind this particular book from you first, Prof. Zani. How are you today?
Hi there. I'm fine, and thank you for the opportunity.
Only but a pleasure. Maybe some context and some background as to, the driving force behind the book and its exploration, titled Unlocking the Chains of Knowledge and Understanding the Challenges and Remaking Pedagogies and Curriculum Renewal.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. So this book grew out of a series of institutional conversations at the University of Western Cape about curriculum renewal and transformation. And this began in faculties as early as 2017, 2018. And then in 2021, these conversations took the shape of a series of roadshows at which our colleagues, lecturers from different departments, spoke about how they understood curriculum transformation and renewal, and how they'd been experimenting with it in their own classes. So they were responding to questions like, how can we make our curriculum more relevant and responsive to the needs of students and the broader society in the 21st century in a Southern African context? And how can our curricula better address the needs of the economy and prepare students for the job market and so on? And then it was after our roadshow in our faculty that our dean at the time, who was Professor Monwabisi Kgalagala, who's the chief editor of our book, and he's now the DVC academic, he, at UWC, he took up this challenge and spearheaded the conceptualization of this book. That was about October 2021. And he invited myself and the other editors, Prof. Suren Pillay, who was the then Deputy Dean of Research and Innovation, and Prof. Kashula, who was the Research Chair of Forensic Linguistics in the faculty, to come on board as co-editors.
Yeah.
So that's basically how it began. And then, it was published the end of last year. It's got 16 chapters written by 40 authors from a number of different Southern African and Zimbabwean universities. And it even includes a few students from our faculty who co-authored a piece with their lecturer.
Yeah. Prof. Russell Kachula, let's jump you in here. It's exactly 10 years ago since hashtag Rhodes Must Fall, right? And that movement, we know, thrust the critical concerns to the fore. And it got us talking, including colonial ideologies that still shape university spaces. Why is this conversation 10 years later still a very necessary conversation? And very pertinent also for South Africans and those within the Southern Hemisphere to confront, particular histories.
Thank you, Bridget. Thanks for the opportunity. I think it is, as we say in the book, we're not going to arrive at a conclusion, but it's a pertinent debate, and it's an ongoing debate. Which we all need to revisit in terms of transformation and decoloniality. So, one of the important reasons why it's a debate that should be had is also to see our students as knowers. In other words, that they bring knowledge onto the table as well, and that we have a student-centered approach to knowledge rather than a top-down approach to knowledge. So perhaps what's important and pertinent about the debate is that it puts the student into the center of the debate, and it also looks at the context in which we are teaching. So we need to be socially responsive as universities in relation to the context in which we're teaching. And that also means, Bridget, I think looking at the curriculum, looking at the way we teach, and looking at what we teach, and asking ourselves the question, as we do in the book, is, and Prof. Bach in her chapter, for example, is what is a good university in the 21st century, and how do we effect changes that speak to the Fees Must Fall and Rhodes Must Fall movement in a real way. And one of the important things, I think, is language, and we emphasize this in the book as well, is that how do we use our multilingualism in South Africa as a resource and a strength, rather than seeing it as a problem within the educational milieu. So those are the kinds of issues that we're grappling with in an attempt to try and reposition universities to speak to issues of decoloniality and transformation in a real and positive way on our campuses.
And I know, Prof, that we've delved straight into the deep end there with that question, but I think it's one that's constantly recurring, right? As you're saying, the ability to give students and look at students as knowers, as custodians also of knowledge. So this has been a recurring theme in the last decade. For students countrywide, though driven, by particular parties and particular student organizations like the EFF's Youth Command. But what would this look like? And you touch on language, for instance, using the strength of our diversity as a tool, perhaps, to bring some kind of decoloniality to the fore.
Is that for me, Bridget?
Yes, it's for you, Prof.
Yes, okay. So some universities have dealt with this kind of in different ways. Like, for example, UKZN has made a language a compulsory, studying isiZulu a compulsory element of university education there. And if we look even at the Rhodes School of Journalism in Makanda, they introduced isiXhosa as a compulsory component of a journalism degree. And there are various ways in which universities are responding to the question of language, but just in simple terms, like in our courses we have bilingual PowerPoints, and you look at the context of your class, like do you have Afrikaans speakers or Afrikaans speakers or isiXhosa speakers or English speakers, and how do you allow these languages to interact in a way where you have a box of languages in the classroom. And then in the lecture hall you draw from that box as and when you wish to make a point and to make cognition more easier, if you like, for students and learners. So it's about finding practical ways of implementing multilingual models of education within our systems, and that not only requires a facilitator or a lecturer nowadays to be open to issues of multilingualism and multiculturalism, but even monolingual instructors, if they have that awareness of multilingualism, can even use our students as knowers within the classroom to bring their different perspectives from their linguistic and cultural backgrounds into the knowledge system. So it's about opening spaces for inclusivity rather than exclusivity, which our Vice-Chancellor Professor Balfour recently warned against as the world is moving to this kind of more exclusive political and social environment. We need to make sure that we as universities address issues of inclusivity and to respond to societal and social and educational needs in that way. Other examples would be, there is a bilingual degree in Sepedi and English at the University of Limpopo. University of Venda has an Indigenous Knowledge System degree. At UWC we have the Center for African Language Teaching, which is developing multilingual ways of teaching and teaching teachers how to teach in those ways. We have an isiXhosa course in dentistry. There are very many, and UCT, for example, you cannot get a medical degree without learning isiXhosa and Afrikaans and passing both the clinical examination as well as the linguistic examination. So the universities are responding in different ways to the issue of what is knowledge, how do we disseminate it, and how do we reposition knowledge in Southern Africa. And I guess that faces all of our universities.
Absolutely. Prof. Zani, to jump you in here, and Prof. Russell touched on your section in the book that explored really three burning questions, right, speaking to what we're talking about. Looking at the curriculum, I guess, in its current form and into the future. And that question that a lot of educators, specifically at that middle level, we speak to a lot of educators on this show, and education specialists who focus on, secondary schooling. And oftentimes the one critical point that they highlight is, well, how do we teach and what do we teach? Because there is a disconnect between what happens in lecture rooms with what society requires at any given time.
Okay, so, I think we're also talking about two sectors here. One is the higher education sector and one is the secondary or the schooling sector.
Yeah.
So maybe I can first just address the higher education sector. And if I can just repeat your question for clarity, that you're asking, what knowledge do we teach and how? Is that what you're asking me in our classrooms? Okay, so, I think this is one of the key questions around decoloniality or, curriculum transformation. Who creates this knowledge and for whose purposes, whose interests, and for what purposes? And I think that we have to constantly look to our students. As Russell said, we need to be student-centered. We need to ask our students, what are their contexts? What are their future plans, their dreams, their ambitions? What knowledge is it that they are bringing with them to the classroom. They're not coming as empty slates. They are coming with a whole wealth of knowledge and linguistic, language resources, and it's up to us how we draw on that. So we in terms of pedagogy or teaching and learning and assessment approaches, we've had to become much more creative and introduce, not only different languages into the classroom, but different modes of teaching and assessment, looking at more, certainly in our discipline, which is, arts and humanities, or in our areas, more creative ways of doing that. And there's some interesting work going on in our university, also in the science faculty, how to bring, more creativity into practices. So I think we are really looking at the how. And then when it comes to the what, we are asking those very difficult questions, like, who teaches what knowledge for in whose interests? And that's a very good critical question that we need to constantly ask, because we know that knowledge is not neutral and universal, but it reflects the context and time in which it was produced. And maybe I can just make a quick example just to sort of try and make that a bit more concrete. But I mean, and it's not my area, but I'm trying to stay away from anything too emotive. About 50 years or so ago, the focus of food production, research in food production, was finding ways of producing foodstuffs in bulk with a particular quality, how to grow strawberries bigger, more red, more juicy. But now, 50 years later, we see that this prioritizing, along the way, we lost out on biodiversity and the ability of crops to withstand different kinds of stress, such as drought. So now, because our context has changed and we're facing climate change and the crises of climate change, we find that our crops are not able to adapt to changing climates, greater heat, drought, etc. So at the time, we didn't realize the importance of biodiversity and stress tolerance in crops. So we sort of bred that out of our production lines. And now we're having to rediscover those characteristics in kind of crops which haven't been tampered with and get it back into our crops. So the point I'm trying to make is, as contexts change, so do what we consider important and valuable knowledge and outcomes. And I think, I'm trying to highlight the idea that knowledge is always in context, and that's something we have to teach students. So we're not just telling them, here are the answers, let's look to Europe or North America for our answers. We're saying, how is it working in our context? Can we use our own local knowledge and our own perspectives and experiences as a critical lens to look at this knowledge and also to build new knowledge? Because after all, we come up with unique insights and perspectives from our Southern African perspective. And I think that's what we're trying to draw on and give students the confidence to trust their own voice and to trust their perspective and to actually feel that it's legitimate and it is valued. So I suppose that's a little bit about the higher education sector.
Yeah. Just as we wrap it up in our final minute and a half, Prof. Russell, your projections to be the future of learning and the education system.
That's a very tricky question, but I mean, one thing for sure is that we have to be dynamic, and universities will need to be incredibly dynamic spaces where they create new and innovative knowledge on a continual basis. So it is indeed about the how and the what rather than a specific language per se. But, we're going to have to bring into question the role of what is our role in the 21st century in creating and disseminating new knowledge. And we need to get away from the sort of intellectual factory, if you like, where we sort of pass down the same knowledge from year to year. We need to be responsive to society. We need to be responsive to our students. We're talking about artificial intelligence now. We're talking about the role of language and how, for example, various apps are being developed to deal with language learning and, the sort of, what would you say, the relationship between different languages and interpretation and translation and so on. So we're going to have to be very dynamic, and we're going to have to be fluid and move as this artificial intelligence also comes to the fore and it gets infused into our teaching and also into the students' learning. So I would say, Bridget, a very dynamic university space that acknowledges that society is changing all the time and that language and humans and culture are also changing all the time and that there's nothing static about education. So I think we need to get away from the static top-down into something much more dynamic way of thinking.
Yeah, I appreciate the time with both of you, profs, and for the nugget into this body of work. That was Prof. Zanibok and, of course, Prof. Russell H. Coachella, and they co-edited Unlocking the Chains of Knowledge, Understanding the Challenges, Remaking the Pedagogies, and Curriculum Renewal. It brings us to the end of today's show. Ashraf is standing by 3 to 6. He's here on the National Pulse with his team, bringing you all of those news headlines unpacked for 3 hours with you in conversation. We'll see you tomorrow. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Thank you, Bridget, and the team. Top stories at 3. Maile address